defensive equipment technology is the tear gas grenades in the exact same dollar amount that were voted down last month as well as previously. I'm confused and disturbed to see these purchases continue to pop right back up on these meeting agendas. As I'm sure you're aware, tear gas is banned in warfare under the Geneva Protocol. It targets the lungs and is shown to make people more vulnerable to respiratory diseases. We spent this past summer watching police departments across the country use tear gas against protesters exercising their First Amendment rights, as well as Donald Trump ordering tear gas used to clear protesters for a photo op. I believe, as do many others, including prominent human rights activists, that we should be moving away from using chemical weapons such as tear gas on our own civilians.
Deadly force has many negative connotations, and far-reaching negative effects. So it will affect the subject upon whom the force was used, along with their family members. It'll negatively affect the officer who used the force, and obviously it's going to negatively affect the community in which the deadly force was used. So it's imperative that we give officers every possible option to attempt to remedy the situation prior to having to use deadly force.
Why did we have a worst case scenario plan? Because what you saw in that week of that protest were police precincts being burned down around the country, officers being shot at, Molotov cocktails being thrown at officers, nothing that resembled a peaceful protest, and we had to be ready for that. And the less than lethal ammunition was ready to be used if it was needed. Less than lethal ammo is about saving lives. It is not deadly force. It is to be used in place of deadly force.
As I look to 220,000 for vehicles or $34K for tear gas, pouring $2 million into a prison that could be closed, right? I think the Wi-Fi program is great and the intentions are, seem pure, right? And probably very beneficial. But you could also just close the prison and still provide those individuals with those same services. Like, read the room, right? How many times do you have to hear that budgets are moral documents, right? You have socialists on this call telling you to cut back on big government spending. Sheesh. Redirect it to the community in regenerative ways, right?
I'm not taking away the fact that there have been some unfortunate cases where cops use less lethal weapons improperly, and sometimes it leads to serious injury and even death. But we know that's the exception, it's not the norm, so I hope we could at least all agree here that, less lethal weapons can prevent and minimize death and injuries.
We are mandated to maintain this SWAT team to protect and respond to any incident in the courthouse. You see what's going on around the country. Courthouses, people are going in and having active shooters. So we have to be prepared and trained just like the regional SWAT team. And we are part of the regional SWAT team. We all work together. We're not the rapid deployment. That's the prosecutors.
I just have one simple question. In the 17 years, or as long as Lisa's you've been sheriff, I know you were involved, but how many times outside of the training has that SWAT team used tear gas?
That was going to be my question too.
To my knowledge, never.
Thank you.
A form of de-escalation is not showing up to unarmed peaceful protesters with tear gas and riot shields and other things that we keep terming less than lethal force, but it's still force. These are unarmed protesters. So a way to de-escalate that situation is to not show up like an invading army.
I'm not going to be forced into a binary choice as to whether I vote yes for law enforcement and no for everybody else. That's not the choice. We are the government. We are imbued with the obligation to make choices based upon our judgment. We live in very dangerous times. Very dangerous times. All I asked was that this equipment be not used in a civil protest scenario. I was told by law enforcement they could not guarantee